Hey everyone, my name is Anish and I'm a filmmaker and content producer who focuses on automotive content, especially motorcycle content. Back when FortNine was still a relatively small channel, I was the one-man band sucker behind the scenes making all those films happen for years on end.
Of course, I'd love to tell you that these were big cushy productions with hot catered food, generous union luxuries, fancy specialized equipment, and assistants running around fetching us hot coffee. But reality was a little bit different. My goal was pretty simple, to make motorcycle films that inspired others and inspired me. And in that pursuit, I really tried to push the edge of what motorcycle films could be, with storytelling, creative direction, cinematography, and editing. Some of my favorites? Well, in no particular order: the soulful journey across the desert on a Yamaha TW200, a very vodka-soaked Wes Anderson-inspired history of the Ural, Trying to Kill, the legendary unkillable KLR 650, complete with its milk crate and everything. A beautiful, nostalgic tribute to the Royal Enfield Continental around Seattle, and of course, more recently, the very non-verbal Mr. Bean and the Honda Moto Compacto.
Now, I've learned the art and craft of motorcycle films from those who have come before me. These are my top 5 picks for films which have shaped me, stayed with me for years.
Despite its name, it's not really a motorcycle movie. It's much, much more. It follows the coming-of-age story of Che Guevara, yes, that very controversial figure, captured in a stage of life before he became a famous t-shirt model.
What the hell are you wearing?
Viva la revolucion, am I right?
The movie follows Che and his buddies' 14,000-kilometer journey exploring and experiencing South America's vast and dynamic landscape. Part of this journey was covered on board a rickety and temperamental 1939 Norton 500, aptly titled La Poderosa, hence the name. This journey changed the world as Che and Alberto experienced the class struggles of the impoverished indigenous living out in the South American countryside. This journey turned a boy into a man, a medical student into a die-hard revolutionary to many, and a tyrant to others.
Do you have any idea what this come mierda did?
Brew an awesome beer to model for t-shirts?
No matter what your politics might be, viewing this movie as its own universe, there's a strong human story here that sits with you for years, and it's worth watching just for that. What did it take to radicalize this young man who, ironically, in a Nietzschean way, became what he was fighting? The movie itself is a masterclass in filmmaking. The directing, acting, and cinematography are all world-class, but invisible, as it should be. All those elements are truly harmonized together by a hauntingly beautiful soundtrack by Gustavo Santaolalla. What I love about this movie is that it shows that owning a motorcycle is not to be confused with the end goal, which is exploring and experiencing the world around you. If not a tool for the journey of life, if not a replacement for the trusty old steeds of old, what good is the motorcycle? This movie breathes with soul and shows the motorcycle's true potential. Beyond mere consumerism, perhaps even offering a cure for the spec sheet masturbation, which is all too common in the industry these days. The second pick is a little less controversial. The World's Fastest Indian follows the story of Bert Munro, an average chap from New Zealand who had a lifelong obsession with speed and is about to embark on the greatest journey of his life. A journey to fulfill his lifelong dream of breaking the world speed record at Bonneville Salt Flats. Not coming from money and having very little resources in a sport where they burn money first and then ask questions later makes it a very steep uphill battle.
Brakes, they're completely inadequate.
I'm planning on going, not stopping.
Armed with that unbreakable, cheery, can-do Kiwi attitude, he smiles in the face of challenges that would have stopped most people yesterday.
Unfortunately, I think your motorcycling days are over.
Like hell they are.
Bert's story is a stirring testimony to the fact that not even the whole world can conspire to take your dream from you if you believe and just refuse to give up. Bert broke the class record, a mere 300 kilometers an hour on a 50-year-old shed-built 1920s Indian Scout, at age 68. What's more unbelievable is that the record still stands to this day. Fittingly, the same tenacity extends to the director, Roger Donaldson, who made a documentary called Offerings to the Gods of Speed 30 years before he got a crack at directing this movie. Bert's philosophy can be summed up in one simple quote.
You can live more in 5 minutes in a motorcycle in some of these events I've been in than some people do in a lifetime.
How do they do it? Why do they do it? Week in, week out, riding and crashing and riding and winning, and always faster and faster and faster.
Moving from low budget to no real budgets, Faster is one of the most iconic racing documentaries ever. This documentary sold me on MotoGP, hook, line, and sinker, even though I was still in school, barely being able to afford the internet cafe time to download the bootleg copy, let alone renting it. Narrated by none other than Ewan McGregor, this doc's greatest strength is something totally out of its control, which is timing.
The sound of a new era. The game has new rules. 2-stroke engines up to 500cc, or 4 strokes up to 990cc.
Faster was shot during a particularly interesting period of MotoGP, where the whole game got flipped on its head as racing went from man-eating 500cc 2-strokes to sophisticated 1000cc 4-strokes.
At the beginning, when you tried the first time the 500, fuck.
Looking back, MotoGP was just in its magical era, with furiously close racing.
I thought he was well out of order.
Wildly evolving riding techniques, epic rivalries, and copious amounts of shenanigans on and off the track. If you haven't followed MotoGP from way back then, I highly recommend this one. Rossi, Biaggi, Duhan, Rainey, Schwantz, Kinkenny, Barry Sheen, they're all there.
What do I like about GPs now? The crumpet, I suppose.
Very few racing documentaries have made this sort of impact on me. What I really dig here is the interplay between the serious and the playful. Men who put their life on the line every single day are understandably not wired like the rest of us.
Les vins des pilotes, il y a aussi des gouttes de folie de Lady Dionisio, que c'est la chose plus beau et qu'il donne l'héros du motocyclisme, qu'il vive vraiment la vie.
If you want to see a masterclass in great storytelling in complicated environments, this one is it. So, how do you tell the story of a few hundred competitors across vaguely different classes like motorcycles, quads, trophy trucks, production classes, and then shoot it live at full race pace across 1,000 miles and 24 hours? It's about as insane as it sounds, which is to say, how do you tell the story of the Baja 1000, one of the most intense off-road races in the world?
It's like being in a 24-hour plane crash.
Having produced a good amount of motorcycle content, I can tell you that just covering this event is a logistical triumph first and foremost. But that's just the start. It takes a true master director to weave 20 different stories into one thread and do it with such depth, humor, and finesse that it's nothing short of inspired.
The ostriches were in shock.
And this is before we get to the stories themselves, because they're next level. From legend Mouse McCoy doing the whole race alone, to big money teams where the bosses watch from choppers hovering overhead, all the way down to the average Joes.
I have no idea how they get through.
Bravely attempting the 1,000 with a few $100 in their pockets, duct tape, and a lot of heart.
Hoping to finish, just to finish.
Now I'll be honest, this movie is a bad idea for your wallet. It'll make you buy an XR650R, hightail it to the Mexican border, and live out your Baja 1000 dreams at full throttle. You'll mostly land up in a ditch at very high speeds, but it'll be worth it, right?
All of a sudden find yourself in a ditch upside down really easy.
Now, it's no surprise that this film absolutely murders when you consider the fact that director Dana Brown is the son of Bruce Brown.
Bruce! What do you want?
The legend who directed one of the most iconic motorcycle movies of all time, titled On Any Sunday, Stretching Out, Reaching High. If I had to send one film into space to explain what motorcycling is to an alien civilization, this would be it. It even has its own soundtrack. How cool is that? What I really dig about this old school documentary is that it paints an incredible picture of all that motorcycling has to offer, from flat tracking to road racing to trials to motocross to endurance to hill climbs to whatever the hell the Finns are up to.
This guy was going to donate his lungs to the Mayo Clinic.
In his classic nonchalant humor style, Bruce guides us through the intricacies of each genre and the equally colorful characters that populate each one.
The one kid who was laughing so hard he got stomach cramps.
Steve McQueen, for one, you might have heard of him.
A $1 million body out there with the possibility of being used by someone for traction in a corner.
Steve was also coincidentally the money behind the film, apparently putting up $300,000 of his own, around $2 million in today's money. Not stupid money, but good enough. They clearly spent it well because it set the benchmark for motorcycle films for decades.
Nobody was doing documentaries like that.
The team employed inventive cinematography techniques like POV helmet cameras, which was a bit more complicated back then than just sticking on a GoPro, possibly one of the earliest applications of that style. When they couldn't afford high-speed cameras, they simply overclocked 12-volt cameras with 24-volt batteries, effectively making them capture double the frames, leading to these beautiful slow-motion sequences. The one thing that we should all thank this film for is changing motorcycling's perception. Motorcycling was for the outlaw, but the popularity of this movie definitely shifted public perception for the better, laying down the foundation for the golden era of motorcycling.
I don't think seriously I'd be doing today what I'm doing today without seeing that movie.
One personality who definitely helped reset the perception of motorcycling was racing legend Malcolm Smith.
We rode on a turtle truck with live sea turtles on the top of the turtles all the way for 5 days.
An 8x 6 days winner and a 5x Baja 1000 winner, Malcolm brutally demolished the field everywhere he went with a cheery Canadian smile on his face.
One year he was 2 hours ahead of the next machine at the halfway point and rode the final 200 miles on a flat front tire.
On Any Sunday is one of the few motorcycle documentaries nominated for the Academy Awards, if that means anything to you. Throw it on after a nice summer ride with some beers and barbecue and you won't regret it one bit. To me, it's essential viewing for any motorcyclist.
The fastest men on the fastest bikes in the world.